Over the past year, Porsche 911 Carrera prices made a surprising comeback. After a period of strong declines, they suddenly started climbing again.
But now it seems that the market is changing yet again. Momentum is fading fast. Prices are no longer going up for some models, and listings are sitting longer.
In this video, we'll take a closer look at what's actually happening with 911 Carrera values, what caused the recent spike, why did the slowdown start, and what it means if you're thinking about buying or selling.
But first it's time to refresh our memory. Every 3 months I share with you the latest development in the 911 Carrera market. The prices have been moving quickly lately, so let's see how we ended up here.
If we look at the prices for the 992.1 Carrera 2S, we can see that they increased during the pandemic and topped in the beginning of 2022. In line with the rest of the market, a correction followed, resulting in a price drop of 8%. During 2023, prices were fairly stable and decreased only slowly. In 2024 though, the market took another hit. It dropped by approximately 5% in a relatively short time period.
But 2025 marked an important turnaround.
Prices increased by 3 to 5% in a time span of only 6 months. The whole market experienced a shift up, but as you probably got from the video title, it seems that the market is shifting again. We can see that the upward price trend broke and that prices were stable during the last 3 months.
Let's now go through some data for the 992.1 models.
Over here I added the trend of the S model as well. You can see that the two trends are heavily correlated. Compared to last year, prices are up by 2.9% in the base market and 3.5% in the S market. The last 3 months though, prices were flat in the base market and decreased in the S market. This latter development is statistically confirmed, and this means that the drop is unlikely to be the result of chance, and that's important.
Now this price dip and recovery is visible for basically all Carrera models.
If I add the Carrera 4 variants in orange and red, we can see the same pattern, and also the GTS and T models moved in a similar fashion. It's clear that this isn't an isolated development.
The data doesn't tell why prices are moving the way they do, but we can speculate, right? Most likely the increase in used prices follows the increase in MSRP.
In March they announced that pricing for model year 2026 will increase by 6.4%, bringing the roughly $122,000 price tag for a base Carrera up to approximately $130,000. In July they increased prices again by approximately 3.6% due to quote-unquote market conditions. This pushed the price of a base 911 up to $134,650. This means that in a time span of a few months, prices increased by more than 10%.
Now it makes sense that the used market adjusted to this MSRP increase. Moreover, it could also explain why prices started to decrease again. Potentially the depreciation curve experienced a parallel shift up, meaning that we could expect a continuation of the downward trend from this point onwards.
I also shared this theory with you in a previous video, but please let me know what you think.
It of course only holds if Porsche doesn't increase prices any further. Officially they increased prices to adjust for market conditions, not to compensate for the tariffs. Porsche communicated that they absorbed those. The timing of the increases though is a bit suspicious.
Now there's one more thing about the 992.1 market that caught my attention.
Now this price bounce and trend reversal is a US issue. None of this is visible in the German market.
Over here I added the trends for the German market in euros, and this shows that the German market seems to be more normal than the US market. Normal in the sense that the cars follow a traditional depreciation pattern. Prices are falling, but they are doing so at a decreasing rate. Compared to last year, prices for the base model are 4.6% lower, and this used to be 6.1%, and the S model 5%, whereas this used to be 5.6%. The US trends look rather strange when you compare them to the German ones.
In the previous market update we saw that it isn't only the 992.1 for which prices increased. The effect trickled down all the way to the 997s. So let's see if prices started to decrease for the older models as well.
In the 991.2 market it's a mixed bag. We can see a slowdown for the GTSs and to a lesser extent for the base models. Prices for the S's continue to go up. Year-over-year price changes end up at 3.7% in the base market, 4.9% in the S market, and 3.4% in the GTS market. Similar to the 992.1s, they're still on the positive side, because we're looking at the last 12 months. The 991.1 market, however, is still in an upswing. We can see that prices increased similar to the 991.2 generation, but didn't stabilize yet. Ignoring inflation, prices are close to record levels. Some do then also say that the 991.1 is one of the best generations ever made. All of this resulted in a 5.9% increase in the base market, 8% in the S market, and 7.4% in the GTS market. An astonishing result. Yet, only the change in the S market is statistically confirmed because it applies to all mileages and model years.
Let's have a look at the 997.2.
Over here we are looking at the automatic market, because the dynamics in the manual market are different. Looking at the trends, we can see a small loss of momentum for the base and S models. The year-over-year change, however, is still solid, at plus 8.9% and plus 8.2% respectively. Prices in the GTS market are 5.5% higher than last year. Keep in mind though that this market is small. Continuing with the 997.1, we can see similar strong prices. Moreover, it seems that prices accelerated instead of slowed during the last 3 months. All of this means that they are now up by 11.2% in the base market and 9.8% in the S market. Both changes are statistically confirmed. An astonishing result indeed.
Are the results even more extraordinary in the 996 market? Let's find out.
Over here we have the trends for the base and S models. Note that S models only include the four-wheel driven variant. We can see a continuation of the market strength as prices curled upwards, though less aggressive than in the 997 market. S's are up by 10.1%, the 996.2 base by 2.6%, and the .1 by 4.2%.
That were a lot of numbers. Let's put everything together now and deduce some insights.
Over here we have the year-over-year price changes between November 24 and 25, aggregated by generation. And this reveals a few interesting things. We can see that the year-over-year increase in the 992 segment increased compared to August. However, this is slightly misleading. We saw that the trend stabilized or perhaps even turned during the last 3 months.
Remember that this was visible for all splits and that the price changes were statistically confirmed. Both of these things help to build confidence in the most recent developments.
The 991 market saw a slight weakening in the .2 GTS and base models. Yet, all the .1 models continue to strengthen, and that's clearly visible over here. Also, the 996 and 997 markets experienced further price increases compared to last year. Moreover, we can see that both markets turned from a negative to a positive development.
So there's a clear split visible in the 911 market. 992.1 prices might turn soon and might enter a new downtrend, while prices for other, most older 911s continue to strengthen. And this is remarkable and completely different to what's happening in the German market. We already looked at the 992.1 generation in Germany, but let's also make the comparison for the other generations.
Over here we have the price changes for November 25 split by country. There are massive differences for basically all generations. As we saw before, 992s are following a more traditional depreciation pattern in Germany, while they're still up in the US but showing a topping formation. 991s in Germany however hover around the 0 point, while 997s are up slightly. The increase though pales to the massive surge in the US. The 996 markets are closer to each other, but again, the increase is the largest in the US.
Let's wrap up and discuss.
We saw that 992 prices in the US could be topping and trigger a trend change. Potentially, the depreciation curve experienced a parallel shift up, following the numerous MSRP increases, meaning that we could expect a continuation of the downward trend from now on.
Will prices plummet? There are no signs for it in the data.
The carried over inventory for the 992 market increased slightly, showing that price increases resulted in slower sales. Yet, they're coming from low levels. Moreover, the price change for unsold inventory is with -2%, still slightly higher than historically in November. The difference though is smaller than what we observed during the summer. Also, this confirms that the market weakened, but is by no means weak.
If you're a seller, I think it makes sense to get that sale started. It seems unlikely to me that prices will continue to rise. On the flip side, buyers might want to hold out for a moment and assess the new trend direction. If prices start to fall again, waiting 3 to 6 months could save you a pretty penny.
Prices for the other generations, with a few exceptions here and there, increased. Naturally, if there's a large shift in the 9 and 2 market, it might eventually trickle down to the older generations, similar to what we saw when prices went up in the 9 and 2 market.
Data for the 9 and 2.2 is still accumulating, but I will of course update you on the latest developments in that market once enough data is available. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. Now if you enjoy this data-driven way of analyzing car prices but would like to see a video for a different car, head over to my channel. Over there you find data-driven market updates for a large variety of cars. Can't find the car you're looking for? Let me know the name of the car down below in the comment section. Once there are enough results for a certain car, I'll make a video about it. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you again in 2 weeks for a fresh market update.